It's not an uncommon opinion that Murder Drones' story feels rushed in some places, and a lot of people agree that the story would be improved if the series had some filler episodes. Episodes where the plot didn't really matter and the characters could just take a break from everything that was happening to them. And one Murder Drones artist decided, you know what? If Liam Vickers won't make any filler episodes, I'm going to make one myself. And that's how we end up with Murder Drones Intermission, a fan episode that claims to fill in the gaps in between episodes 4 and 5. Ever since the episode released in July of 2024, it's grown massively popular, amassing over 1.9 million views, dozens of redraws of some of the scenes, and a healthy amount of videos praising it for what it does for the series. However, it is in my humble opinion that not only is Intermission not as good as some people claim, but it, in many ways, actively ruins the series. Welcome to the video that will speedrun my exile from the fandom. A fair warning that this will contain spoilers for Intermission, so if you haven't seen it yet and want to go in blind, head to the link in the description and watch it for yourself. If you have already watched the episode, or haven't watched it and just don't care about spoilers, let's get into the video. Susie has a nightmare about the events of cabin fever and tries and fails to purge the solver from her system. N witnesses this and feels sorry for her and decides to help her by teaching her how to fly. V is opposed to this and N tries to convince her to agree with him. She tries to manipulate him and the two start fighting before Uzi interrupts them and N endangers her life by chucking her off the spire. Uzi is vaguely traumatized, but forget that, it's time for a montage. Things go vaguely fine, and they set up an obstacle course to check Uzi's progress. However, she gets possessed, and a fight starts.
Aborted. Invades your personal space. Fatality.
Oh my god, V!
I don't know what you're screaming about. You've literally seen her get impaled and have her limbs chopped off. This is nothing. N manages to calm Uzi down by blasting her head off, and once she recovers, he hugs her, but V shoves her away and fires a barrage of bullets at her. N puts up a pathetic fight, and V admits she has no respect for his feelings before flying off to kill Uzi. N panics and flies off to find her. V finds Uzi in a crumbling building and breaks down her hiding spot, preparing to kill her, but seeing her man herself in Uzi's position. Her vision returns to normal and she apologizes to Uzi for having her character development stolen, and the two walk to the collapsed wall V entered through. N finds the both of them and tackles them in a hug, and they reconvene at the corpse fire. V plays the victim despite having been the instigator for this entire episode, mentions not remembering her life before Copper 9, and gets an undeserved hug from N. Uzi comes up with the idea to hop into her and N's memories, and V verbally opposes, chucking Uzi off the spire. However, Uzi takes the opportunity to show off her skills and gives a finger gun to the audience, ending the episode. Uzi feels a bit too silly in this episode. She feels kinda immature and a bit childish. Maybe it's because she sounds like Pommy, so I find it more difficult to take her seriously, but she just feels too goofy here. No, I'm legit serious. She sounds like Pomni here. Like, tell me I'm not going crazy. You guys hear it too, right?
And
Oh, my robot god! My name is, oh god! Why can't I remember my name?
In general, it feels like she's kind of just been watered down to quirky and sad. although this is probably due to how little she does of her own volition. In general, my biggest problem with the way Uzi is handled in Intermission is just how little autonomy she's allowed. There's nothing she does that isn't either a response to or the result of another character, and she basically only exists as a plot device to artificially develop V. It's not the worst character assassination I've seen, but in general, she just felt a bit off to me. N got nerfed in this episode. He feels weirdly passive, and it doesn't make much sense given his arc of learning how to stand up for himself. N's grown more confident and sure of himself to the point of being willing to fight for what he believes in. In Cabin Fever, N was clearly angry. He was willing to get physical with V and fight her if it meant keeping Uzi safe. Heck, after N pushes her away, V looks visibly shocked. She's not used to seeing N act this assertive and downright aggressive. She was used to the passive puppy dog of a drone who loved doing anything. Even in promening, N is willing to fight V when she brings up the idea of prom murder and tries to negotiate with her to find a less fatal alternative. Compare that to Pilot N, who chases Uzi back to the bunker and attacks the drones there just because he was afraid of getting berated by Jay, and who couldn't even bring himself to give her some constructive criticism, being incredibly flighty and not making eye contact with anyone. And even in A Heartbeat, when Uzi's about to insult Eldritch J, N cuts her off and compliments it, despite it technically not even being Jay. And so him barely putting up a fight and not even trying to stop V when she flies away to kill Uzi feels like an odd regression of his character. The most he does is try to find Uzi before V does, something he technically fails at, and afterwards, he proceeds to forgive her for insulting his feelings and trying to kill his friend. This is like Pilot N levels of pacifism, and a hypothetical fix wouldn't even be that complicated. Just have him put up more of a fight with V after Uzi runs away, have him legitimately try to convince her she's wrong, and when she does leave, make him look visibly angry. And at the end of the episode, don't make him hug V. She doesn't deserve that. Instead, just have him do something as simple as put a hand on her shoulder and give her a tired smile, suggesting that while he's open to forgiveness, he's not going to brush off what she did. Intermission straight up ruins V's character, as it makes her go from caring yet not knowing how to show that she cares to a sadistic jerk who will throw a fit whenever she doesn't get her way. And it even ruins one of the best written aspects of the Canon series, V's relationship with N, as it makes her overall treatment of him go from misguided yet noble to straight up abusive, as she essentially ignores his opinions and acts like her way of thinking is the only correct one, and it makes her come across as uncaring and downright controlling.
No, if we really want to take care of our little feral emo girl problem, what we could do instead is blow her brains out.
I'm sorry, did we watch two different versions of Cabin Fever? She does not deserve to get forgiven at the end of this episode, as her actions here are downright awful, and what she does to make up for it is lacking. She chases Uzi away after she's already been nullified as a threat, despite having seen not just once, but now twice that Uzi can be brought down from her murderous rampages, ignores and invalidates N's opinions, all while acting like her way of dealing with Uzi is the correct one, despite, once again, seeing N able to save her. Also, little cherry on top, she acknowledges Uzi as En's friend. She is consciously aware of their relationship and how much Uzi means to En, meaning that she is aware that by killing Uzi, not only would she leave En heartbroken as he grieves her, but she'd also probably be breaking his trust by unnecessarily killing his friend and such an important person in his life. She does the bare minimum by not killing Uzi and apologizes to her, but immediately after that starts deflecting. She blames Uzi for her actions despite her body having essentially rebelled against her, and tells her that she's a lost cause despite having seen proof that's not the case, invalidating her own suffering by saying she and En have had it worse, and then proceeds to leverage her trauma as a get out of jail free card. And because I know people are going to cling to her single, barely whispered apology like it's the only thing keeping them tethered to the ground, actions speak louder than words, both as a general piece of life advice and in a series that says show don't tell as murder drones. So her apology is all but atomized by her actions at the end of the episode. In general, she feels way too aggressive. Her first action in the episode is to point a gun at Uzi's face when, in the series proper, the most violent thing she ever does is scratch her visor. And this is when she and Uzi are alone. Also, she would never do this in front of En. Her whole thing is keeping secrets, and she would never make an attempt on Uzi's life right in front of the person who would want her dead the least. Also, for the record, she doesn't help during the montage. You could literally remove her from this segment and nothing would change. At most, you would lose a couple of visual gags and a single still. While we do see her participating, she's more just standing off to the side, and even then, it's hard to tell how much of this she willingly helped with and how much of it En peer pressured her into helping with. And the worst part, I don't even think V acting like this is a necessarily bad idea. If she were in a situation where she were under a lot of stress or pressure, I could see her sort of snapping and believing she has to be the adult in the situation. However, this line of logic simply doesn't work for Intermission as it completely ignores her development of the previous episode, and the events of Intermission aren't that stressful or taxing considering they're just a rehash of the events of episode 4. In Cabin Fever, V is literally pinned down and about to be stabbed with her own nanite-acid. Were it not for En, she would have died. If you put her in a similar life or death situation here, then you could have very easily excused her actions as her not thinking straight due to a fight or flight trauma response. It's a lot here, and you may be thinking, but Kitty, what character development? Doesn't V just unrealistically change in between Cabin Fever and Dead End? And to that I have to say, yes. If you don't know how to analyze media and take everything a character says and does at face value. But V's behavior at the beginning of Cabin Fever is different than how she acted at the beginning. After En and Uzi hug, V simply sneers, sheathes her blades, is catty with Lizzie, and smiles. She thought that Uzi had reached the point of no return and that the only thing they could have done was kill her. However, she saw En manage to calm her down, not with violence, but with love. And later, on the bus, when the teacher asks about the missing kids, V looks at Lizzie, looks back at Uzi and En, sleeping soundly, and lies. She takes the blame for Uzi, saying that she gets hungry, and the teacher admitted that he wasn't playing the blame game and was simply asking a yes or no question. However, after this, V sits back in her chair and smiles. Fully apologize to Uzi or monologue her character development to the audience in an easy to understand soliloquy, but it's clear that what she witnessed then changed her. It changed her opinion of Uzi and her opinion of En's relationship with her. I suppose if you turn your screen brightness down and squint, you could argue that the first smile was simply at Lizzie and that she lied for N and not Uzi. Although, based on her actions in future episodes, especially Dead End, it's clear that the moment at least inspired her to change. So seeing her character development just be erased with a Mr. Clean magic eraser is kind of disappointing, as it makes her feel inconsistently written at best and actively untrustworthy and two-faced at worst. You know, if this were some AU where V was an irredeemable jerk who simply flipped personalities to get on the side of the people she liked, half of her face being obscured by oil would be a nice, actually creative bit of symbolism. Does she actually understand now? Or is her development just going to be reset the minute we need her to be the source of conflict? And even if after all of this you still think the an intermission is well written, let me ask you this. If her vision hadn't been damaged and she didn't see herself in Uzi's position, do you think she still would have chosen to spare her? Also, the gag about tossing Uzi off the spire isn't really funny when you realize it makes N look borderline stupid and makes V seem even worse considering she's already tried to kill Uzi twice. I get that the whole point of intermission is that N doesn't really know what he's doing and is trying to make Uzi feel better, but there's a difference between a well meaning mistake and actively putting the life of someone you love in danger. And I've said enough about V. If you want to keep the gag so bad, just have Uzi throw herself off the spire. First, it would be to show off her immaturity and headstrongness, and then it would be to display how much she's learned. The fight scene is a melting pot of problems. First off, Uzi. What's her status during this fight? Is she possessed, or is she just overheating? She has the solver's voice, suggesting she's possessed, yet her solver symbols are purple, suggesting she's not possessed, and an overheating warning appears on her visor, causing her to bite her finger for oil. So, is she possessed or not? All the evidence seems to point towards an overheating problem, yet the voice is a smoking gun that she's possessed. Yet, regardless of which one it is, neither option makes much sense. Overheating feels like a bit of a stretch, as in Cabin Fever, Uzi was shown to have active overheating issues at the beginning of the episode, way before she went solver crazy, whereas in Intermission, overheating isn't really brought up until the warning appears on Uzi's visor, after she's already going crazy. In all fairness, she is seen drinking a juice box of what's presumably oil later in the episode, but if anything, that only makes her later overheating make less sense. And possession is even more illogical. The solver seems to only possess Uzi for two reasons: to taunt and remind everyone of the danger, or when it needs to deal with its puppets personally, and it doesn't have much of a reason to do either here. All N is doing is teaching her how to fly, which isn't something that would be a massive detriment to its plans, so I don't see why it would feel the need to get up close and personal like this. Also, if N knows that Uzi can not only survive getting her head blown off, but that it can successfully snap her out of an aggressive episode, then why would he be so hesitant to attack her or let her get hurt during episode 7? This entire fight just feels like a Schrodinger's cat of plot contrivance. The scene everybody praises as a super powerful, defining moment for V's character isn't that good. First, by straight up showing us Eldritch Manor V, it essentially spoils episode 5. And no, that's not foreshadowing. Good foreshadowing leaves things ambiguous, and you usually don't even recognize a moment as foreshadowing until the event it foreshadows. This is just a straight up spoiler for Manor V in episode 5. Also, it feels like lazy writing. It's meant to be a moment that's incredibly deep and symbolic and says a lot about V's character, but it's just so obvious what the meaning is, you can't really interpret anything for yourself. It's the storytelling equivalent of holding the audience's hand because you don't trust them to interpret anything deeper. Not to mention, it doesn't make much logical sense. Visual hallucinations have never been shown or suggested to be a side effect of solver memory wiping, only deja vu dream sequences. And it's hard to blame it on her vision being damaged, as when N's vision is damaged in the pilot, he doesn't hallucinate another drone in Uzi's place. He just doesn't register her as a worker, and his 3 functioning brain cells figure she must be a weirdly short disassembly drone. So V literally seeing her old self in Uzi's position feels sort of like a deus ex machina to get her to spare Uzi after her previous development was erased and she was dead set on killing her. So yeah, the scene everybody loves and you can find literally hundreds of redraws of with minimal effort. In terms of symbolism and foreshadowing, it has the subtlety of a semi-truck and doesn't make that much logistical sense.
Try having this be your entire life. I barely remember anything about what life was like before.
No, you remember. You have to. This line makes no sense. In episode 4, she literally name drops Sin, and I know, we see Sin's name in the pilot after N gets his head lopped off.
Really think the company
Maybe
isn't
something
going to
happened
dispose
to
of you once
V
all
and
the
she
workers
saw
are
that
dead?
same death screen. Well, even if she knew that somewhere in the universe there was an entity named Sin, that screen doesn't say or show anything that suggests this Sin character is a biomechanical antichrist. Not to mention, the tone V uses here feels more personal, like how someone may refer to a person they have a long-standing grudge with. Not to mention, the expression she makes when Uzi turns the arrow into meat is a look of recognition, which wouldn't make much sense if she didn't remember Earth or the mansion. Now, I'm not going to deny some of her memories were probably fuzzy, and I doubt she remembered everything perfectly, but she had to have at the very least remembered the mansion and the Gallup massacre. Well, I suppose if you squinted and turned your screen brightness down, you could make a semi-decent argument that she didn't remember and was simply going off of instinct. I have a feeling the implication was meant to be that she still remembered something, at least more than N.
That won't be a problem for me.
No, we are not going to leave that to you. You did not have any of this planned. You put on the zombie drones tape, and then N and V passed out due to the solver trying to erase their memories once more. Then you used your little disc thingies to jump into their brains and figure out what was happening. And it's not even like you have to read between the lines or interpret this using context clues. Dark X Wolf 17 straight up says this to Manor N and the audience in the episode.
So these are memories, and future me is dead at a sleepover?
Not a sleepover. You passed out because some internal program is trying to delete these memories.
Cause of you? Cause you're doing that?
I'm helping, you cute, weird butler. We find out what happened to you here, restore the memory files, and save you from being digitally lobotomed.
Intermission is a summary of my feelings on filler. In my opinion, what makes a good episode, filler or otherwise, for a series like Murder Drones, that it does one of 3 things. It either contributes to the story, expands the world, or explores the characters. Intermission tries to both continue the story and explore the characters, but it doesn't do either of those well. The characters are regressed and, if anything, act like unflattering caricatures of their real selves, and the episode creates too many inconsistencies and plot holes without doing enough to justify its own existence. I mean, I guess it answers the question as to how Uzi knows how to fly, but that wasn't exactly a burning question on a lot of people's minds, and even if it was, is answering that question really necessary when getting the answer involves breaking so much established canon? I'm surprised we didn't get a cameo from Miguel O'Hara. It honestly sucks that Intermission ended up like this because it had a lot of potential in its premise. However, instead of getting a fun, light-hearted episode featuring the cast goofing off right before the horrors, we instead got a Sunday of character assassination, sprinkled with plot holes, and then topped with a fuzzy cherry of guilt-tripping and victim blaming. Anyway, that's all for me. If you're gonna kill me, please do it swiftly, and I'll see you all in the next video.